My girlfriend of 10 years left me after getting pregnant with my younger brother. Now, 6 years later, a terrible event has unfolded. For the past 6 years, I, 32M, have been living apart from my family following a terrible tragedy that split our family. I will try to precisely convey the complete scenario. 6 years ago, I was with Rebecca, my high school sweetheart, also 32. Since we were 16, we had been together. At 26, we were getting married. Everything appeared ideal, and beginning our life together excited me. Rebecca first crossed my path in our high school biology class when we were both 16. As lab colleagues, her brilliance and sense of humor immediately appealed to me. I saved weeks' worth of money for our first date to drive her to a decent local restaurant. I knocked over my water glass in great anxiety, but Rebecca laughed and helped me to clean it. I knew then she was unique. I sought to make every moment with Rebecca unforgettable during high school. I shocked her with a scavenger hunt across town for her 17th birthday, placing hints at all our favorite sites. Her last hint brought her to our neighborhood park, where I had laid together a picnic with her favorite dishes. I will never forget how brilliantly her eyes lighted when she saw it. I was resolved to make our long-distance relationship work when we started different colleges. Whether or not I had homework, every weekend I would drive 3 hours to see her. During test weeks, I would deliver her care packages loaded with her preferred treats, stress-relieving tools, and handwritten letters of encouragement. I worked additional shifts at my job after graduation, when we both returned to our hometown, to save for a dream trip for us. Rebecca had always wanted to travel 2 weeks to Europe, so I surprised her with that. We saw London, Paris, and Rome. I booked a private boat trip on the Seine River during the Paris sunset. With the Eiffel Tower gleaming behind her, I can still see her looking so gorgeous. I totally backed Rebecca when she said she wanted to return to school for her master's degree. I started a second job to cover living expenses and her education. Though I had to get up early for work the next day, I would remain late with her, testing her for exams and correcting her papers. I meant to recreate our first date for our 10th anniversary. I set aside the same table at the same restaurant, dressed similarly, and even planned with the waiter to unintentionally drop my water. Saying it was perfect, Rebecca laughed so hard. I proposed under the stars and took her to the beach following dinner so we could kiss first. Looking back now, considering all these memories hurts. Driven by my heart and soul, I really felt we were creating a life together. Knowing how much I loved her and how quickly she seemed to toss all aside makes the treachery burn much more. Rebecca came to me with startling news a few days before our wedding. She reported she was pregnant, but the baby wasn't mine. She had long been cheating on me with William, my younger brother. She was sure the baby was his. She had done the arithmetic. Though I was devastated and angry, what hurt even more was Rebecca telling me she had emotions for William and wanted to wed him instead of me. My entire life seemed to be collapsing all around me. Angry and hurt, I went to tell my parents everything. Though I anticipated them to be as startled and disturbed as I was, to my surprise they appeared strangely cool about the whole matter. William was always considered by my parents as their golden kid, hence I never expected this degree of treachery. I should be glad for my brother, they advised. Even more thrilled about being a grandma, my mother totally ignored how I would feel about the circumstances. What I was hearing stunned me. It felt as though in a moment my whole family had turned against me. The individuals meant to be supporting and loving me were advising me to simply accept this great betrayal and pretend as though everything was normal. Unable to handle the treachery from not just Rebecca and William but also my parents, I had to make the tough choice to leave. I packed, relocated to another city and cut off all communication with each of them. 6 years ago is when that was. My father phoned me a few times throughout all that year, but those exchanges were always tense and awkward. William, my mother and Rebecca never contacted me at all. Not even knowing the name of William's child, my own nephew, as best I could, I tried to move forward with my life. Though I struggled to trust after what occurred with Rebecca, I concentrated on my profession, established new acquaintances and even began dating once more. Still, I was gradually reconstructing my life away from the suffering and betrayal of my past. Then a few days ago, out of the blue, my mother called me urgently. Her name on my phone screen astonished me given all this time. She seemed angry when I responded and said William had suffered a horrible accident. Now he was paralyzed and helpless of working or looking after his family. Hearing this news set me in a range of feelings. Hearing about William's accident surprised and depressed me. Even with all that happened, he remained my brother. But another side of me felt enraged that this was the reason my mother was suddenly getting in touch after 6 years of no contact. Her words next infuriated me even more. She informed me the family needed me. She specifically wanted me to return and act as William's child's father figure, supporting Rebecca in running the family while William healed. I got enraged. How could she possibly believe this was a reasonable request after all that had happened? I told her quite definitely not. She and my father had decided to back Rebecca and William over me, and I reminded her that they had betrayed me in the worst sense imaginable. I claimed I had no obligation to assist them now, particularly after years of no communication. My mother became agitated and charged me with being self-serving. She advised family always comes first, and I had to let the past go, saying William's child required a father figure and that Rebecca was having trouble juggling everything on her own. She tried to guilt me. I stayed grounded and turned down once again. 6 years ago, William and Rebecca made their decision. Today they had to live with the results. I said it was not my duty to intervene and pretend to be content families just because their circumstances had become challenging. I advised my mother not to get in touch with me again unless it was to apologize for how they had treated me 6 years ago before we hung up. If they admitted how deeply they had wounded me, I indicated I might be ready to re-establish a relationship with them. But I would never replace William as a father figure for his child. I had a range of feelings once the call finished. Though a bigger part of me felt furious and damaged once more, part of me felt guilty for turning my back on my family when they needed aid. Now wrenched open, the wound that had begun to heal sent all the suffering and treachery roaring back. Since the call, I have been debating this choice constantly. One hand, I feel awful for the child growing up without a completely present father. William's accident is not his child's fault. On the other hand, since they betrayed me and then neglected me for years, I don't think it fair for my family to expect me to fly in and mend everything. Some of my pals believe I'm right in my choice. They claim my family made their bed and now they have to lie in it. Others, however, believe I'm being too severe and should at least give helping some thought for the child's sake. About what to do, I'm split. Some of me wants to keep the life I have created free from the drama and suffering of my past. Another side questions whether I'm being too stubborn and if there is any way I could assist without entirely compromising my own welfare. Reddit, is I right in not helping my brother and his family after he snatched my fiancée and got her pregnant? Edit. Whoa, thanks all for your comments and viewpoints. I want to offer some extra background and touch on a few shared themes. Regarding those curious about my dating life, yes, I have dated Rebecca, but I have not had any committed long-term partnerships. My capacity to trust suffered most from the betrayal. I have been working on it in therapy. Many have wanted to know whether I am certain the child is William's. To be honest, I'm not sure precisely. Rebecca claimed at the time she was certain based on the timing, but I never found any evidence either way. She decided to leave me for William, hence personally the paternity doesn't alter much. I'm thinking about folks who believe I ought at least see William in the hospital. Though I'm not ready to pardon him, I would like additional information about his situation and outlook. A few remarks noted the possibilities of financial assistance apart from direct engagement. I hadn't given this any thought before, but it could be interesting. For those intrigued about my father's calls over the years, they were essentially surface-level exchanges. The relationship stayed tense since he never admitted the damage done or apologized. A few inquired about other family members. Though they reside in separate states and weren't closely involved in the matter, I have a few relatives I still contact. Though most people feel I owe them nothing, assisting might offer me peace. I will give this viewpoint considerable thought. I value it. I appreciate it all once more. Reading your remarks has helped me to consider the complicated and emotionally charged circumstances that exist here. I'll let you know should any noteworthy changes occur. Update. My last post was a couple weeks ago and a lot has happened. I wanted to let you know how things stand. My parents persisted even if my first response to aid was negative. Almost every day my mother phoned. Even my father started getting in touch more regularly. Telling me how much William and his family needed my support, they kept urging me to change my mind. I first disregarded most of their calls and texts, but after weeks of nonstop correspondence, I became tired. Though I was still enraged over all that had transpired, a tiny bit of me was fascinated about William's situation. At last, following almost 3 weeks of this, I made the decision to pay William a visit in the hospital. I reminded myself that was only to find out how severe his illness truly was, not because I was thinking of volunteering. My tummy knotted when I got to the hospital. After not seeing any of my family members personally for 6 years, I wasn't sure how I would respond. William was laying in the hospital bed as I arrived into his room. He appeared pallid and skinny, linked to several devices. To find my once active younger brother in this situation shocked me. My parents as well. With more gray hair and wrinkles, they seemed older than I had recalled. They hurried over to hug me when they found me, but I pulled back. Not yet was I ready for that degree of closeness. Then I turned to see Rebecca. Tired and concerned, She was standing beside William's bed. Our eyes locked and I started to flood in recollections. I thought back to all the times I had totally trusted her, all the future we had arranged together. I considered how she had been my confidant, best friend, the one I imagined I would spend my life with. Then I thought of how readily she had thrown all of it away. How she had betrayed me in the worst imaginable manner with my own brother. Seeing Rebecca once more after all these years caused all the suffering and resentment I had tried so hard to overcome. I had to fight the want to turn back and leave the hospital straight out. I avoided talking with Rebecca. Rather, I probed my father about William's situation. William had sustained a spinal cord injury in an automobile accident, he said. From the waist down, he was paralyzed and would require long-term rehabilitation. The doctors doubted if he would ever walk once more. My dad remarked something that surprised me as we were chatting. Soon after the child was born, he said, they conducted a paternity test to verify William's indeed fatherhood. I had no knowledge of this test, thus it seemed as a last validation of their treachery. A small child of around 5 or 6 entered the room during our conversation. This has to be my nephew William and Rebecca's son, I realized. The lad seemed perplexed and perhaps afraid of all the medical machinery. Rebecca first brought him to me as his uncle. Mostly just saying hello and asking him about his favorite toys and games, I spent a few minutes with the youngster. Meeting this child who was biologically my nephew but whom I had never known existed felt odd. My mother demanded that I visit their place to further discuss until lately following the hospital visit. I grudgingly agreed, partly to get this whole matter over with. My mother started a sermon at the house on family responsibility and how I should have been stepping forward to assist Rebecca and the child while William was healing. She expressed Rebecca's overwhelm in having to raise a kid, take care of William, and run their house alone. Listening to her, my resentment started to grow. When she stopped at last, I told her precisely how I felt. Like she usually had, she was acting selfishly and solely thinking about William. She had not once asked how I was doing or shown any interest in my life over the past 6 years, I pointed out in all her calls and during this entire chat. She seemed to have come out to me solely because she needed something from me, not because she really cared about mending our friendship. Even after William had deceived her so terribly, I stated it stung that she appeared more worried about his welfare than she ever had about mine. Saying that of course she loved me, my mother tried to defend herself, pointing out that William's position was an emergency. She stated, I had a duty to help, as the healthy brother. I inhaled deeply and told her my ultimate choice. I responded that although I could not give up my own life and peace of mind to assist William's family, I felt pity for his situation and for the difficulties they were confronting. I said I wasn't ready to give up all of the years I had been constructing a new life for myself, working over the trauma and betrayal they had given me. I told her I might be ready to see them once more in the future, but only if they were ready to own how much they had offended me and begin to re-establish trust. I made it plain that this connection would not call for my filling in for William or serving as a father figure for his son. My choices infuriated my parents. They said I was forsaking my family when they most needed me, that I was selfish, but I insisted. 6 years ago they supported William and Rebecca above me, therefore making their choices. Now they had to deal with the results of that choice. I informed them before I went that, while I was open to remaining in touch and maybe working on our connection over time, only if they could respect my limits and show real interest in my life, not simply what I could do for them. That evening's drive home brought a range of feelings. Particularly considering William's sons growing up with a crippled father, part of me felt bad for not assisting more. Still, more of me felt relieved. At last I had spoken up for myself and established reasonable limits with my family. I came to see that although family relations are vital, they do not grant anyone permission to mistreat you or exploit you. Years of mending from their treachery had gone, and I wouldn't be ready to relive those scars just because they suddenly felt they needed me. My parents have phoned a few times in the weeks following that trip. Though the talks have been strained, they seem to be trying to probe my life rather than merely discuss William. Though it's a little step, it offers me hope that perhaps our connection will develop in a better shape with time. Right now, I'm mostly concerned with my own life and welfare. Reconnecting with my family has brought up emotions that I have begun seeing a therapist again to work through. I'm also putting myself into my work and hanging out with buddies who have helped me through all of this. Though I'm not sure what the future holds for my family, I am sure I made the best choice for me. Though only on my terms and at a speed I'm comfortable with, I am open to gently restoring our relationship. I appreciate all of your help and guidance during these trying circumstances. Though I feel like I at last found some closure, it has been a difficult few weeks. I am ready to go forward with my life.
Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet,
Please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.